Hello and welcome to Steve McDonald's Arts and Crafts. Now, I've seen a lot of posts about these little devils. Now, these can produce some really interesting shapes for pendants and to use in other resin projects. But what I've seen is a lot of people are having trouble with casting them, keeping them upright when they've been cast, and also demoulding them. And so what this video is going to show is how I actually prepare my moulds ready for casting, let them cure, and also how to easily demould them afterwards, because there's nothing more frustrating than trying to demould something when it doesn't want to come out. Okay, so here we go. So I've prepared my moulds, and what I've done is I have what's called Oasis here, and you can get this from any good florist, or I get it from Amazon actually. I buy a big box of it because I use it a lot, and I push my moulds into this before I start to pour into them, because it holds them quite firm but it doesn't distort the mould at all. And then when I've poured them, I can actually move it away from my work surface without knocking them over, spilling the resin, or doing any damage to the mould. And as you probably know, if you've seen any of my other videos, I also use it for putting sticks in. I also use it for putting other sticks in like that, and balancing stuff on top if I want to dry it. And I find it really, really useful. And it's not that expensive, so I literally, when I've finished with it, I use it a lot first, I then chuck it away. So these moulds are all, as you can see, they're not in there tight. I mean, if you want to push them down a bit further, you can. It goes in quite simple. And again, like I said, they're not distorted. And then they're nicely there for when I'm ready to pour. So I'm going to just mix up my resin, and then I will pour into it. I've got electric blue, I've got pure gold. In here I've got ultra fine pale gold, so it leaves little specks of mica in it. And there I've got the fiery fusion, and I love these colours. I really do love these colours. And I mixed them up separately, and I'm using a casting resin, and I've mixed it in the same way that I show on my video on how to mix resins, because I want to avoid bubbles in them. Apart from this one, which has got the really ultra fine pale gold, because actually I quite like the bubbles in that one, because it kind of gives it a bit of sparkle to it. So here we go. So the first one I'm going to pour is like the fiery red. And I do them in these little shot glasses so they're easy to pour. Now, what I try to pour is I also try to pour as slowly with a thin line, because that also helps you to remove any bubbles that you might put in. And I overdome, because I will cut that off in a little while, but I'd rather that than they sunk. Although I don't necessarily need to overdome as much as that. And the other thing is I will show you is how to put the little hooks in these to turn them into pendants as well, if that's what you're looking to do. So they don't take an awful lot of resin, but because the silicone mould is quite thick, it does cause some people problems getting it out of these moulds. And it doesn't matter if you pour these all at once. You don't need to pour them in sections, because they are small moulds, so it's not like they're not going to cure. I think I've said this already, but I am using a casting resin here, but you could get away with a resin that you use for covering your pictures and things like that, because they are quite small and they will cure as long as you've mixed your resin well, according to the manufacturer's instructions as well. Can you see there how thin a little line I'm pouring in that? There we go. That's about perfect, that one. Now, why I can't do more like that, I don't know. Well, I do know, because I is a bit clumsy, and I do get carried away. And I'm kind of doing 2 of each colour. I will have a little bit of resin left over, but I'm not worried about that, because I will always pour my leftover resin into a coaster mould or some other mould to allow me to not waste it. Tiny weeny little drop more in that one. There we go. I get better as I go along, look. Okay, I'll do 3 of this one. And these aren't actually too difficult to clean out afterwards either. You'd think that they would be, but they're not. There we go. Nearly to the top. So these have now been curing for about 4 hours. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the rings that I will support these from if I turn them into necklaces, or pendants, which is what I will be doing with some of them. So some I'll be turning into pendants, some I will be using just as crystals, I think. So with those rings, what I do is I get a little bit of plastic like this, and this is actually just off a plastic toothpick or a dental brush. I pop it on there like so, with the bit that closes on the ring downwards, and then I put it in like that. So if I want to straighten it up, I can, and I have that bit of plastic there so that it actually can't sink right the way down. And if I want to move it around a little bit with that bit of plastic on there, I can, because I can just take a couple of lolly sticks, and there we go. So that's one done. And again, like I said, I always have the bit that where the ring joins going into the resin. And that will give it a neater look and a neater finish. Use the lolly sticks. That one there needs straightening up, and they're moving a little bit as the resin is starting to settle over the actual ring itself. And then what you can do is you can just put the chain through that, or you can put another ring on top of that if you want the chain to go a different way. And I think they just look a little bit nicer than having screwed it in tops to them. But if you like the screwed in tops, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that either. So do whatever way you feel easiest. But I find this is easiest because it does allow you to embed them in at this point. Thank you very much, and we'll come back to these when they're cured. Well, these have been curing now for about 48 hours, and they are completely cured. They're quite hard now. And I always think that's important when you're going to demould something like this that's small. So before I start to demould these, there are a couple of things that I do. Firstly, I lift away all the edges around here and try and get as much air into them as I can, and I push up from the bottom. Okay, so what I want to try and do is loosen this mould off as much as possible, but they're still quite difficult to get out. So I'm going to finish off the rest of these doing that. I'll just do one more. So this square one, or rectangular one, I'll pull the mould away from the edges like that. I'll move it around here, and then I will push up from the bottom, and that does help air to get into the moulds. And now what I'm going to do is I'm also going to remove all these little bits of plastic that were preventing those rings from going into falling into the resin. Okay, so once I've done these, finished off pulling all these away from the edges, we'll come back to the next stage. So the next stage is, I've got a bowl here of very soapy warm water. It's not hot, it's just warm water. And what I will do is I will put these in it, okay, and let them soak now for probably about 30 minutes. And I find that it really does help to get them out if you soak them for about 30 minutes. So once these have soaked for about 30 minutes in this warm soapy water, I will come back and show you then what I do to demould. So these have been soaking now for about 30 minutes in here, and so all I do now is I lift one of the moulds out, I release again the edges, I get a pair of tweezers, I put it through this loop and I pull. Okay, and they just slide out really easily. There we go. So there's no real hard work, and because you've got these hooks in them already, it gives you that little bit of leverage to release the vacuum that is in there. Some of the soapy water they'll have got in there as well, and that helps it slide out, and it's much easier than trying to struggle with them or cutting the moulds, because you can reuse these moulds again, and they're all clean because they've been in the soapy water. I'm going to put them back in there, okay, just to give a little bit more of a rinse out, and I'll just get a bit of cloth and dry those off so I can show you how nicely they've come out. So let's just give those a bit of a dry, and there we go, they're ready to go now in and be used as pendants. If you need to slightly trim any bits off, then you can, but most of them don't need anything doing to them. And there we go, they're all ready. And these are the ones that I absolutely love. These are the ones that were done with the clear resin and just using some of the ultra fine pale gold mica, and I think they come out absolutely beautiful, and really so do the rest. You can put a chain directly through there if you wish, or you can add another one of these rings onto it and then put a chain through it, and they actually hang really nicely, and they're just ready to go. And again, as you can see, there is no bubbles in them, and there's no bubbles in these. So I hope you found this useful. Don't make this hard work for yourself, because there's absolutely no point. It is really easy. Enjoy what you're doing. Please like and subscribe if you found this to be a really useful video. I try and put as many useful videos up as I possibly can, and I'll see you soon. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like and share this video as much as you can to help my channel grow. Bye.